Welcome to the channel. I'm Stacy, and my goal here is to help you to play better and sound better in your worship services. Today I'm going to go over the parts for the song What a God by SEU Worship. That song is going to use an E-shape A chord here at the 5th fret, a D-shaped E chord here at the 4th and 5th, kind of fretted all the way up to the 7th, a D shape up here at the 9th and 10th, an A shape up here at the 14th, and then kind of working off of the E major scale for a part of one of the big choruses. But let's just get into it. So starting off, we're going to come in on the first chorus. We're going to be playing our E-shaped A chord, fretting here the A string and the D string at the 7th fret, the G at the 6th, the B and high E at the 5th. And then going to a D chord where we're going to fret the A at the 7th, the D at the 6th, the G at the 4th, and the B at the 5th. And we're going to go through that pattern 4 full times in the song, but here I'll just run through it a couple of times and you can hear how that runs together. Coming out of that, we're going to be into verse 2, and our part's going to come up here. It's going to be playing off of that D-shaped A chord. As far as the notes we're going to be playing are going to be part of what fills that chord out. We're going to be fretting the G string at the 9th fret 3 times, the D string at the 11th fret 3 times, the G at the 11th twice, the G at the 9th again 3 times, and then the D at the 9th once, the D at the 11th twice, the D at the 9th once again, and then we're going to come down to the 7th, and then back up to the 9th, and we're going to hit that one 16 times. I'll play the whole thing slow, without the effects, and then I'll play through it with the effects. I'll go over it with the effects after we hit it. So this is the 2 phrases on this section. And then we're going to come back up and do that again. And then we're going to go to the A string down to the 4th fret. And this one we're going to strike 2 times. The 7th on the A string 2 times. The 9th fret 2 times. Nope, the 9th fret 3 times. The D string at the 7th fret 3 times. The G string at the 6th fret twice. And then the D string at the 7th fret again. We're going to hang out there, so I'll run through it up to that point. Be like that. And then we have this, we're kind of palm muting quite a bit of that. And then we're going to open it up. We're going to fret the G string at the 6th fret, the 7th fret, and the 9th fret. The D at the 7th, the A at the 9th. I'm going to slide down and fret the low end of that E-shaped A chord. So I'm just fretting the A at the 7th, the D at the 7th, and the G at the 6th. And then we're going to fret the high end of that D-shaped E chord, fretting the D at the 6th, the G at the 4th, and the B at the 5th. And then we're going to bring our pinky down on the G at the 6th, and then pull it off. So be like that. And then we're going to wrap up that verse section. We're going to drop down to the bridge pickup, and then we're going to bar the G and D string at the 7th fret. We're going to drive that, and then we're going to fret the G at the 9th fret and drive that, and then slide our barred index finger up and bar the G and B and D string at the 9th fret and drive that before we go into our chorus. So I'm going to play the whole thing without the effects, and then kind of slow, and then I'll play it a little bit more close to speed with the effects. And with the effects, coming out of that first verse, we're going to be into our first chorus. And that one is going to be playing off of that D shape A chord. And we'll be fretting the G string at the 9th fret, the B at the 10th, and the high E at the 9th. And then the B at the 10th, the high E at the 9th again. And then the G at the 9th, the high E at the 9th, and the B at the 12th. So we run through that 2 times, and then we change it up, and then we're going to just run through that chord, arpeggiating G at the 9th, B at the 10th, high E at the 9th. And we're just going to play through that, picking each note. We're going to pick through that 2 times. And then again, the G and high E at the 9th, the B at the 12th, and then the B at the 10th. Not at the 10th, just at the 12th. And with all the effects, it'll be like this. And then we do resolve that section by fretting the B string at the 10th fret and kicking it on to snapshot 3. And then just letting that ring out. There's a down part in the song right there. When it does come back, we're going to play a melody that's going to descend, kind of an arpeggio that's going to descend on our D-shaped A chord. And we're going to start it fretting the B string at the 10th fret, the B at the 9th, the G at the 9th, the D at the 11th, and then the D at the 9th, and then the A at the 12th. That's the first half. And this is going to be with our super saturated swell tone. And then we're going to fret the B at the 10th, the B at the 9th, the G at the 9th, the high E at the 9th, the B at the 12th, the B at the 10th. And then that's going to be another down part where I think we're down in the bridge, so or an interlude. The song comes down and then it's going to build up pretty good. So I'll play through that whole thing a little bit slow and then kick on the effects and play through it. And with the effects, it'll sound like this. So coming out of that, we're going to be into our first bridge. And we're going to be playing a descending arpeggio. It's very similar to that. The first half is the same, and that'll be like this. The second half is going to take us into a bit of a build. And so we're going to be starting it the same, fretting the B at the 10th, the B at the 9th, the G at the 9th, the high E at the 9th, the B at the 12th, the B at the 10th, and then the G at the 11th, and then the 10th again. And I'll start it. It's easy to kind of get lost trying to remember what we're fretting, but I'll play through it and then catch up. Okay, that's where we got so far. And now we're going to fret the high E at the 9th fret, the B at the 12th, the B at the 10th, the B at the 9th, and then we're going to descend all the way to the A at the 12th fret like we did on the first half. And then as soon as we hit the A at the 12th fret, we're going to come back and strike the B string at the 10th fret. And then real quick together, we're going to fret the G and the high E, both at the 9th fret. And then we're going to fret the B at the 10th, the B at the 9th, the G at the 9th, and then we're going to strike the high E at the 9th twice, and then at the 12th fret twice. And then we're going to get into a little bit of trying to count and remember how the melody goes. I struggled with it in doing the cover. So just going over that part one more time. Now we're getting into, let's see, up, down, what is that called? Alternate picking. Fretting the B at the 10th, the B at the 12th. We're going to walk this down again. Walking it down to the A at the 12th fret and then back on the B string at the 10th. We're going to strike that 6 down counts. And then we're going to go to the B string at the 12th fret and then the B string at the 9th fret. And then it's going to start that kind of walk where we're hitting the G at the 9th, the high E at the 9th. So it'll be like this. So the high E at the 9th, the B at the 12th, the B at the 10th, and then we're going to start driving the 9th fret G string, the 10th street B string, and that's going to be 8 downstrokes. I alternate pick that, so more of a strum. We're going to fret it, the G at the 9th, the B at the 10th, and then we're going to do that for 8 count. The G at the 9th, the B at the 12th, do that for an 8 count. And then we're going to come back to the 10th, do that for a 12 count, and then back to the 12th for a 4 count. And then we come out of that with a melody that's going to be, actually, we'll get to that in a second. Let me run through that section one time slow without the effects, and then one time with the effects up until the point that we're driving that that quick, a double stop chord, an A to, what would that be? Kind of an E chord. This would be E if I was fretting the 12th or the 9th fret, D, G, and B. So we're kind of going a power chord from an A chord to an E, but I'll play through the whole line up to that point slow, and then I'll play through it with the effects. And with the effects, of that, we're going to be in a melody, still in that D-shaped A chord. We're going to be fretting the B at the 12th, the high E at the 10th, the B at the 10th, the high E at the 10th, so the B at the 10th, the high E at the 10th, the high E at the 9th, the B at the 10th again, the high E at the 9th again, and then the B at the 12th. And we run through that one time, resolving it that way, and then we start it again the same, and then we end it by fretting the high E at the 14th and then the 12th. And I'll play through the whole thing slow without the effects and then once with the effects. And for that part and the driving part, I went from the more reverb heavy snapshot 1 to a less reverb heavy snapshot 2 with stacked overdrives, and it'll sound like this. Coming out of that, we're going to be in a tremolo picking part. And we're going to start up on the high E at the 14th fret, go up to the 16th fret, and then the 17th fret, and then back down to the 16th. And that's part of the E major scale. And then anyway, we're going to be tremolo picking that. And I'm going to kick on all the effects. Tremolo picking is kind of hard to do. It's hard to do it clean. And so with all the effects, it'll just be a little bit easier to play through it, but it runs through the part twice. So we're going to fret the high E at the 14th, the high E at the 16th, the 17th, back down to the 16th, and then I slide down just to give a reset, slide back up to the 14th, up to the 16th, 17th, 16th again, and slide down. And for the cover, I kicked that onto snapshot 1 just to reduce the amount of trails. It goes into a down part there before we come in heavy. And so with the tremolo picking, that'll sound like this. Coming out of that, we're going to be into a bridge, and we're going to come in with a muted string, chuckas, and then we're going to come in on our G string, fretting the 12th fret, and then the 11th fret, and then the B string at the 14th, the G at the 13th, and then we're going to do a walk up on the G string from the 13th to the 14th to the 16th. Come back down on that same G string to the 11th fret, and then the B string at the 15th fret, 14th, the G at the 14th, the B again at the 14th, and then the G at the 16th fret. And with the effects, it'll sound like this. Coming out of that, we're going to go into this big open kind of an ascending scale off of the D-shaped A chord, fretting the high E at the 9th, the high E at the 10th, the high E at the 12th. And I drove that a little bit and gave it some vibrato. And I used my Snapshot 1 setup with the distortion, and it just gave it a big full ring. So coming out of that line, I'm going to come out of that line and then into that part. Also, coming out of that, we're just going to be back into that descending scale off of the D-shaped A chord. Real quick, I'll run through it. So we're doing that, and then once we come off of the B string at the 12th, the B string at the 10th, then we're going to be driving. This is going to be a D chord. So the G string at the 11th, the B at the 10th, to an E chord, the G at the 13th, the B at the 12th, And then we're going to be back with that kind of an A sus4 chord being fretted out. So what I'd like to do is just play through just the way that whole thing wraps up, from that bridge with the palm muted notes coming in off of the chukka, and then into the big open walk up on that A scale, and then all the way through to the end of the song. So with all the effects, it'll sound like this. I hope you found that helpful. If you did, subscribe and hit that like button for good measure. If you'd like the resources for this song, you'll find them at a link in the description box below. There are a handful of downloads free for you in there as well. All right, I hope you have a great week, and I'll see you in the next one.